there was everything else. And then there was man. A being who may resemble one horny fellow, but be not mistaken, this is man. An icon of insanity. And the patron saint of the Batman Arkham subreddit. This community of stupids have had a ball posting and trolling over the past couple years with their own brand of inside jokes and lore, like any healthy, thriving community. These jokes have even spilled outside of their micro niche and became a staple of Reddit meme culture in general. It was stupid, it was serious, it was man. That was until... To the shock and horror of the Asloom, man was adopted by a corporation and the community gathered to collectively mourn the fall of man. The life cycle of a meme traditionally is that it gets created mostly out of thin air by a collective sharing their own distinct qualities, morphed and riffed on until it becomes an entity in and of itself. That is, until it inevitably gets discovered by a corporation who then uses it to shill to that community. It is at that moment the only good and proper thing to mourn the meme's loss. Man's acknowledgement by the capitalist state brought sanity to the insane, a reason to the lore. Man became merely a photoshopped image of Batman without ears. But why? Had something changed? Was man not still man? Is this low-quality, uneared, caped crusader not the same as he always was? Why did a mere tweet prompt an entire community to kill man? Man's death lasted for about a week, but I've been lurking that place for a year, and I found the whole thing very interesting. Beetle Circle Jerk subreddit was infected by the insanity, so I just had to find the source, and what's happened, I think, brings us a little lesson about society, and the whole idea of context.
You know, we're living in a society!
A society can be understood as a collection of ideas that work together to create a certain structured, constructed narrative. These ideas can be created over the course of years, centuries, or just days, creating understood norms, and we make sense of the things around us through language. Language is born through shared understanding based on experience, which we then use as a means of survival. One of the languages of the internet is perhaps the mimetic image. The mimetic image and internet vernacular is understood through shared experience. We laugh at memes because we recognize them. If I was to tell you about how I went from the screen to the ring, from a hawk to a king, maybe a total of 2 of you might laugh, and another 2 might click off. On its own, there is nothing funny about that statement. It is just because brain rot wounds us all, and you might have noticed a couple Easter eggs. Man was adopted as a symbol of a certain community to represent its own unique brand of deviance and absurdity. This is often how these words are born, but what happens when they escape their own society? Internet vernacular is mostly a collection of terms from incels, homosexuals, and African Americans. The term woke in its original conception a century ago meant to be aware of how society exploits you. The word itself is a derivative of the English word awake. The African Americans, forced to speak the colonizer's tongue, took that word and twisted its meaning to fit their own unique context, because they had to. Stay woke. However, over the past decade or so, maybe because of Childish Gambino, white people caught wind of the word and started using it themselves.
What does that mean to you? Would you mind defining woke? Because it's come up a couple times and I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
So, I mean, woke is sort of the idea that this is going to be one of those moments that goes viral. I mean,
but because they couldn't dream of having the context of its original meaning, woke became a general word used to describe anything slightly liberal to the left of the political spectrum. On their side of the fence, all they knew was that their enemies were describing themselves with that word, so it got appropriated. And because of the cultural hold they have over the world, that new meaning has in the mainstream completely overshadowed the old. So did the word change? Woke is still woke, but its role within the world changed because the people saying it changed. Or on the opposite side of the spectrum, based. That's a word I love to use. I mean, I haven't used it that much in a while. It's kind of fallen out of fashion, but based is another word that's been strange. Another stolen word from black people. Originally meant someone addicted to crack. Then it was used by rapper Lil B, the bass god, to describe someone who's unapologetically themselves. But then it really gained prominence when the incels from 4chan got their hands on it and used it to mean cool and anti-PC, you know. Anti-woke. However, people like me started using the same word to mean the exact opposite, you know, cool and progressive. Subversive, but in an anti-establishment kind of way. Same thing, opposite sides of the spectrum. The context is all the difference.
This is where Thanksgiving really begins, isn't it, Edgar?
Well, now, if you're referring to the aroma of roast turkey, I concur.
No, Ray, I was talking about the kitchen. It looks like a real center of hospitality.
Did you say hospitality?
Uh-huh.
That's one thing we're always prepared for around here. Help yourself.
Wouldn't this be a good time for you and your guests to have Coca-Cola, too?
Yes, and Coca-Cola is so delicious, so refreshing, so tempting to any guest when you bring out those familiar bottles.
If humans did not exist, you know, the world went on as is, but human beings were not invented, or we inevitably go extinct due to climate change, would there be any such thing as trees? Those things we currently call trees, the green things in the forests and such that grow and all that, would still be there. But would they still be trees? What is a tree? The concept of swearing is so strange. I always taught them as curse words, and the understanding there was that when you say them, you're literally putting a curse upon someone. But they are just words, sounds, letters that we made up. Different societies have different curse words, and the particular words change meaning over time. The big one in the English-speaking word is just a word for sexual intercourse. The second biggest simply means poop.
Chisholm! Grandma!
Many common insults are some variation of accusing someone of being gay,
Go suck a dick, suck a dick, suck a motherfucking dick.
lonely,
Yourself.
or incestuous. These are things that our society deems vulgar. So they become bad, taking on an even supernatural power. But societies change, so the words change. But the meaning is the same. What people intend by saying these words, however they sound, is still the same.
Damn it! Hell! Crap! Shit!
Why is damn less powerful than f***, in spite of the fact that damn quite literally means curse?
You goddamn motherfucking bitch! You car wash cunt!
Why is cunt such a normal word in the UK, but Americans flip out over it?
Remember what I told you.
Don't be a
Words take on meaning when societies project meaning onto them. Language is communication, so however the society is structured, its language will reflect that. Whatever is threatening to that society is threatening to its structure. Whatever is celebrated upholds its structure. I know intellectually that swearing doesn't really mean anything, but culturally for me, you don't just drop F-bombs when talking. But culturally for others, I notice Americans and people from the UK, you know, my core audience apparently, seem to use them more liberally.
Hey, fucking cowboy, fucking cowgirl, how the fuck are you doing?
It really is just talking. I have to remind myself sometimes when I see comments or social media conversations, because it initially feels like an attack sometimes. This video is so fucking good, like, oh, whoa, don't hit me. Anything could be a bad word, you know, but what does it mean when we choose to use profanity? What are we doing? Is it punctuation? Is it a curse? Depends on the context, I guess. What we call trees would still be there. But would they be trees if we weren't there to call them trees? Not just a name, but what is a tree? What does it do? Plant which rises from the ground and sometimes bears fruit. But what is fruit? What does it mean to rise? The whole image we conceive of trees and what they are and what they do is in relation to us. Is there such a thing as fruit? Or is it just very convenient that those things we call trees provide us with sweet things that are good for us? Did God order the trees to provide it for us? Or did we find those trees and make them provide for us? Do trees really grow and rise, or are we projecting our own human experience of growth onto a species that is completely divorced from that context? Here we find ourselves in a fragmented pocket of a little bit of everything all the time, all of us in our small circles but bleeding into each other, gravitating towards those which seem most familiar but inevitably open to those outside. Twitter is a collection of contrasting ideas structured to be divorced from any kind of context. Reddit is a hub built on people who gravitate to each other based on shared context. But what if that context is removed? What if it's taken to a place it never should have been? What if it's dissected inside out? Outside of the context of Batman Arkham, is man still man? By discussing man in a video essay, am I mutilating him further? Man is supposed to purely exist within the realm of the stupid. Is this stupid? Am I stupid? If I remove the semi-ironic nature of this whole thing, will man be man, or will it just be another idea broken and dismembered by outsiders divorced from the context? I find myself washed up on the beach, but where? Somewhat African, but not really. The tips of Italian, a touch of Indian, with a taste for kabuki theater. English escapes my mouth, speaking to mostly Americans. I clothe myself in the apparel of that which I find and that which is most available to me. But what am I doing? Where am I going? Are these clothes, words, or thoughts stolen? Was I stolen?
I'd like to buy the world a home and furnish it with love.
Jesus. The European guy in the painting with the hair.
He's got hair.
Who said all the things and made all the rules. Or the Jewish countercultural revolutionary who got killed for criticizing tradition too much. The character changes depending on who's preaching about him. Is the Jesus in you the Jesus in me? Could the Jesus people in my local church who wail and weep about because he saved them when the end seemed inevitable be the same as the Jesus who chose Donald Trump to be his prophet and told the Europeans to kill and enslave the Americas? Or is someone missing something? The story itself changes depending on where it's being told. Is the God the Jewish people served while being actively persecuted the same as the one the Roman Empire made the law? What happens to the real guy being passed around like this? Where are the real words? What is the good news? Who is seeing paradise at the finish line? What does paradise look like? I've always heard it described as streets of earthly mineral and high-rise mansions, but I've experienced it in the laughter of friends and a nice slice of cake on a rainy afternoon. Who's to say, really? Has anyone been there? Men invented men and women, but if men have never been women, how can they know what a woman is? If men cannot know what a woman is, how can they know what it is to be a man? If we've never been trees, can we truly know what it is to tree? We see the tree, we see the woman, and based on what we see, how the thing exists in relation to us, how it functions within our own context, we create a definition. We make up names. then everything that bears resemblance to what we have deemed as tree or woman is forced to operate through the framework that we designed for it. When we need to mow those trees down to create buildings for money, we do. We need to set up little trees in our houses to make the place look pretty. We do. Trees have their place in our world. Men and women have their place in this world. We create countries, we create communities, we define them, or at least whoever's in charge of that community does. But inevitably, those communities are a part of a larger world, a larger ecosystem. A company can come and see a nice thing like man. We created man in spite of those people, yet very easily we're reminded of how quickly man can become theirs. Our own words, our own definitions, our own identity can become theirs. Man is an invention of Reddit, a particular community within Reddit. But what happens when man is removed from its context? Is man still man or merely a product? They killed him off for about a week, but when the dust settled, man returned. We have Jonkler, Officer Balls, Dick, but it was not enough. Maybe because we needed man. But is man still man?
I like to teach the world to sing. Sing with me. Perfect harmony. Perfect harmony. I like to ride the world folk and keep it company. And the real
Man must exist. Man needs to exist. But does man still exist? Maybe not in the way that it used to. A society is a collection of accepted ideas constructed to produce its own culture and identity. Sometimes societies are built from people who find each other. Sometimes they're forced to, creating their own language and cultures to survive in a world they can't fight on their own. But what if that language is stolen? What if the words themselves were stolen from others? Are they truly yours or merely borrowed? How do you exist in a world of people? Awake did have to exist to become woke, but then the word changed again. Ideas exist when they are defined, but how do you define things when your own existence is constantly being defined by others? How do you exist in a world that's actively against your existence? Borrowed, tossed, stolen. Maybe we needed man. In a world where your very existence stands in deviance to structure and the concept of normalcy taunts your very soul, we must continue to speak, to chart where we've been, and continue to blaze a trail for where we're going. Through the contradictory absurdity of daring to exist, we must continue to forge our own language, speak to what is, embrace the insanity, embrace the stupid. Man continues to be man, though not really. But the culture that brought him forth exists in spite of itself because the ass loom will always exist, even if it does not take that form. Daring to exist in spite of it all. Maybe we needed man. Man, this video is stupid.